Okay, I will call to order the January 15th, 2025 meeting of the Oregon City Urban Renewal Commission. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Doug Neely.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Present.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Here.
And Chair Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Note that Lori Arnello is excused.
Excuse me.
And I would like to welcome Commissioner Scott Wilson to his first meeting. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we say that now.
Okay, do we have any public comments?
No, sir.
No public comments. Okay, we'll move on to discussion items. The first item is election of chair and vice chair for 2025. So I'll open the floor for nominations for chair. Nominations?
I would like to nominate Commissioner Mitchell.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations?
I move the nominations be closed.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Nominations are closed. Yes, you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Doug Neely.
Yes.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Yes. Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Aye.
And Chair Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Motion
Okay.
passes.
Nominations are open for the position of vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Neely.
Second. Any other nominations? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the nominations. Go ahead.
Commissioner Doug Neely.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Aye.
And Chair Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you. With the group's agreement, I think I'd like to flip the two items and hear from Mr. Zook first, because I'm not sure we're going to get through item B in the time we have, and we don't want to run late because we've got an important commission meeting with some public presentations and a lot of public interest tonight. So is that all right with the group?
Oh, I think Mr. Zook's presentation is going to be exciting.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Zook? Mr. Kunkel, you have anything to introduce this, or are we just, okay.
Let him know.
No, thank you. We'll just have Matt give the update on the Urban Renewal annual financial report.
Evan, could you pull up my 54 slide presentation, please? I'm just kidding.
Ghost of John Lewis.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having me here this evening. As Tony mentioned, we are proud to present the 2024 June 30 annual financial report. For again, this is as reported in the staff report. The auditors issued an unmodified or a clean opinion, and that's to be expected. Wasn't any issues with management and the audit team. In the packet, you've got the financial reports and a couple letters from the auditors to the governing body that you can hopefully have read or could read. I will say that it's been a fairly quiet year in urban renewal. You can see that in the summary I just indicated that the net financial position of the urban renewal agency decreased by $600,000 over the previous year, and that's primarily because we didn't bring any tax revenue in during that first year. This was the first year of the biennium where we did not levy a tax, and we still have some depreciation and things on the assets that are just normal expenses that continue to occur. So really it's fairly uneventful, but I will answer any questions if you have any. Otherwise, this is information only, and no need to take any action, but willing to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Griff.
So we had foregone collecting for the first part of it, and we will be going back to collecting, correct?
In the second year of the biennium, the Urban Renewal Commission did elect to levy about $55 million, which is 25% of
Okay.
the amount, and that's already been done. I mean, that's.
Right, I just
yeah.
wanted to make sure, okay.
Yes.
But I was trying to recall, was it the second year going to be 25% or the full amount?
No, there's 25% for the second year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, a shameless plug for the budget committee that's going to be kind of up here. I didn't speak to you guys directly about the budget cycle, but you'll be well informed and invited to participate in that process, and that's where that decision would be made again.
You handed out the schedule before, so.
Are there any other questions?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
What is a non-depreciable asset?
Land.
A non-depreciable asset?
Land.
Could you give me some examples?
Yeah. The Urban Renewal Agency does own land, and so land is the only asset that we have that's undepreciable. And so we own. Right. So there's, several of them that we do own, and so those do not depreciate, just the buildings on them or any of the other assets.
The two houses that are near Moot, are those urban renewal or city owned?
Yeah.
Urban renewal, okay. So on a piece like that, the land portion would not depreciate, but the house on it would, right?
Right.
Okay. Any other questions?
We don't need to do anything.
No. Information only, right? No motion
Right.
necessary? Okay. Thank you as always for the report. Thank you as always for the clean audit report. That's always wonderful when that happens.
We have money.
Thank you. And we have money. Okay, then we'll move on, go back up to item B, Adaptive Reuse Building Rehabilitation Program 2.0. And is that Mr. Conkle or Mr. Graham or tag team?
I'll just go ahead and start this off. So, the City Commission had asked staff to look at some types of programs or options to help with redevelopment of certain buildings, properties. We worked with the commission, created the Adaptive Reuse Building Program, very similar to a program that Urban Renewal had several years ago. As we were coming to the end and having a discussion about funding for the program, the commission directed staff to bring this to the Urban Renewal Commission for a discussion about the program and funding. So this will be new for Commissioner Wilson and probably Commissioner Neely, though I imagine when you were on the commission, we had this program in place several years ago. But so we'll give a brief update and then I think just kind of help with the discussion that the commission would like to have around whether it's the project or funding and primarily, what we're able to do in urban renewal right now based on the charter limitations.
So as the city manager had mentioned, you are reviewing this because it was referred to you by the city commission. The program is a little different from years past in the sense that it will provide forgivable loans for for-profit businesses, commercial development investors, and nonprofit organizations seeking to rehab buildings that are 40-plus years old. Most of those buildings are in the Urban Renewal District, and that was one of the reasons it was referred to the Urban Renewal Commission. And the other reason because it was referred to you because the City Commission felt that funding for this particular project should come from urban renewal. The eligible projects include, as I said, buildings that are at least 40 years old, and the emphasis and priority are placed on rehabilitation projects that meet at least 4 goals of the program, and that would include encourage the reuse and rehabilitation of existing older buildings within the district and contribute to the economic vitality and pedestrian activism of the area, enhancing the safety factor of older buildings, increasing the assessed value of eligible existing buildings, and support projects that actually come to fruition. The other thing is that the program right now is scheduled to provide slated to provide up to 15% of eligible rehab cost up to a maximum of $150,000. And eligible recipients may obtain partial funding up to 50% after the approval of a loan review committee that will be reviewing the applications. But once again, this is a forgivable loan, and if the applicant does everything that they're supposed to do based on a development agreement, then it becomes a grant. So that is a high-level overview of the elements of the program. And so I will turn it back over to you for questions and discussion.
Okay, questions for Mr. Graham?
When did this go into effect originally?
Oh, gosh.
It could go into effect, of course you have to prove it, and then it will go into effect, I think it'll
Mr.
probably go
Graham, I
into
think
effect.
he's talking about the previous program that we had before your time.
Yeah, actually, that's not what I was mentioning. This is a revision, but this has not been implemented
No,
yet.
it has
No,
not.
this has not been
Okay,
implemented,
I'm correct
no.
then.
Okay.
I don't have a question, but I am in full support of funding coming from both sides, wherever we can get it from. The Oregon's Main Street program is putting out their grant program again, and they've upped the amount this time. Instead of $200,000, they're going to be awarding $400,000. And I know we have a number of applicants downtown who are interested in applying, and I think that something like this is ready-made. I know I can't speak for the commission, but I would like to see if we can figure out a way to put some of this funding in place to help a business do some rehabilitation to some of the buildings or one of the buildings downtown. Many of them sorely need improvements. I will say that the applications that I saw, a lot of them had roofs in their proposals, and the Oregon Main Street program will not pay for a roof. But there were facade improvements that needed to be made for many of them, and this is something that I really feel that we need to do. Even on a small basis, every little bit will help.
Mr. Morrow?
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad that we're finally having this conversation with the Urban Renewal Commission, which is where I believe it should be happening, based off of the geographic constraints that we've decided upon, and looking for a source of funding, which I believe strongly should come from Urban Renewal. With that being said, I've gone back and forth on the issue of the nonprofits, because I understand why we decided to exempt them from paying property taxes, because they currently wouldn't, and if they got the grant, then they would start paying the property taxes, which would go against their interest. But the problem I have with that is that since this will be urban renewal, we wouldn't be getting the increment from that investment. And so that's where I go back and forth on whether nonprofits should even be allowed to. It's not that I don't think that there are nonprofits who have worthy causes in the district. It's just I have a hard time squaring that circle with what urban renewal is supposed to be used for, and the fact that the investments we make into these structures are supposed to come back into the tax rolls in the form of higher property values. So that's really my main hang-up, apart from the whole funding conversation.
I wouldn't have a problem taking it out if that's a sticking point. I was trying to think of any nonprofits in that area that would even be thinking about possibly applying for something, so.
Right, and I just think back to recent history and accusations of
Oh, yes.
misuse, and I think that this would be a good step in showing people what urban renewal used properly can do for our community.
I don't know, it's also a drop in the bucket, but we hopefully will have a potential courthouse project. Not we, but I'm saying we, the general community, not us, the city.
The big we.
The bigger picture, yes.
Anybody else before I chime in? No? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Morrow. I had not thought about that. Projects being on the tax rolls. and that is a serious objection that's been thrown up about urban renewal and the way it was used in the past. Rather than say nonprofit or not, do we put in here a requirement that the property is on the tax rolls and paying property tax, or would be when the project is done? Does that get to the same thing without just singling nonprofits?
No, we just delete
Just
it.
take it out that they're not eligible?
And then it's just not in there. If it's not in there, it's not allowed, so.
Okay.
Because originally, Mr. Graham, as it was drafted, it did have them paying property taxes after, correct?
Right.
And we had decided not to do that.
Well, it originally didn't have them in it at all. And then they were included to pay property taxes. And then it was decided that they shouldn't pay property taxes. So
Right.
you're right, we went back and forth on that, but that's where we are right now.
Thank you.
Just a question. I guess I'd even have a conceptual problem if you had a nonprofit that wasn't in the urban renewal district, they don't pay taxes. What would happen if we made an exception for the urban renewal district? It doesn't follow our city code if they don't pay taxes, I presume.
Well, the nonprofit's exempt.
Is that?
Yeah, the nonprofit would be exempt from any taxing, property tax obligations.
Yeah, but it sounds like outside the urban renewal, they don't have to pay taxes, and inside they would have to if they did this.
That was a discussion of the city commission would one remedy be if you're a nonprofit who does not pay property taxes, if you wanted to do the program, you'd have to pay property taxes.
So that's not in conflict with the city ordinances themselves?
It might be in conflict with federal law, IRS stuff, but
Fee in
not
lieu of-
us.
Yeah, it's an agreement to pay.
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of shorthand. The idea is that if you took part in this program, you would have to pay some type of fee in lieu of property taxes, so that essentially the city recoups what it would otherwise do. You know, there are state statutes and federal law about nonprofits, what can and can't be taxed, so.
Anyway, I think I'm in agreement with the issue you brought forward.
Yeah, so, and if I may.
Yeah.
So rather than deciding between whether one would pay or not pay taxes, I think, for me, I would lean toward just not allowing nonprofits to apply.
You just take out in the
I see some head nods down this way.
paragraph 3, it
What's the
says
feeling over here?
nonprofits, we just take that out.
So I have a quick question.
Sure.
So with the concern of the nonprofits, I understand that is the concern essentially that this would be a forgivable loan, that the money is just forgiven, or even, okay.
I think the concern is that, the idea of investing into buildings is to increase property value.
Right.
Which increases the taxable value.
Right.
So if they're in, we would never ever collect on the investment on the back end. Unless it was sold, unless the building was sold to a non-nonprofit, a for-profit business.
A for-profit.
So do we have consensus to remove nonprofits from
Yes.
eligibility?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Right.
That makes sense? So we're going to remove nonprofits from
Yep, we've got
being
that.
eligible?
Yep.
Okay. And there would be, there wouldn't be any prohibition or issue with us having a parallel program with the getting to Mayor McGriff's comment about property inside and outside the district. The city could have the same program, right?
Correct.
Correct.
And use general fund money, and urban renewal could have it as well.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I think we would be probably pretty descriptive in where it's eligible, obviously.
Yeah.
I think obviously we're not going to use urban renewal funds outside of the district. You could use general funds in the district, but I think we would set them up, if that was something we did, probably as two distinct, general funds for outside of the urban renewal area. Urban renewal funds are for inside the urban renewal area. Right.
So I'll be the one to put Mr. Kabisman on the spot.
Yes.
We have funds on hand in urban renewal that could easily pay for this program. Do we have any legal restriction against going ahead?
So in terms of spending those funds, no. The only sort of qualification out there is that the rest of Section 59 of the Charter, Section 59E was struck by the courts and said that doesn't have any effect. The reason behind that likely applies to 59, the rest of 59, and it doesn't have any effect, but we don't have anything from a court, and if somebody were to borrow things. But the key part about that is it prohibits bonded indebtedness as it's defined, and the bonded indebtedness is a promise to pay more than a year in the future. So if what the city does is hand over funds and say, go forth and do this, you're fine. If you say, here's what we want you to do, and it needs to be done within 364 days, you're fine. And then we'll pay you, you're fine. But if you say, we'd like you to do this, and we're going to pay you money, when you're done, and it could be 18 months later, you got a problem. And you don't necessarily have a problem, but you will be acting contrary to the first 59A through D, I forget the specific one, and I think that's probably okay, but we don't have a definitive court telling us that. And there are some ways to get around it if we want to talk about that. But in terms of the money that you have in the Urban Renewal Agency right now, I believe you can spend that money now. If you want to go buy property, for example, as long as you pay the money up front, within 1 year, you're good. If you want to give a grant and give that money out, as long as that payment doesn't come a year down the road, you're good.
And there are other ways around it, as you mentioned.
Yeah, so if I could just maybe get everybody up to speed, right? So right now in the Urban Renewal, for the Urban Renewal Agency, there's one outstanding litigation, and it has to do with the vote that was put out to the citizens last May. State law allows for a challenge to the summary and the caption, not the explanatory statement. And so there's litigation around whether someone should be able to challenge an explanatory statement.
And just that's absolutely correct, except it's a challenge to the city elections officer. So it implicates urban renewal because it came up in the course of an urban renewal ballot title, but it doesn't, whatever the outcome of that election, that lawsuit is going to affect what Evan and Jacob do. It's not going to affect any power or authority that the Urban Renewal Commission has or doesn't have. And so,
but then there's no other litigation outstanding related to Section 59. And so if I could just take a second, just to refresh everybody, Section 59, the Urban Renewal Agency of the city shall not issue bonded indebtedness after the effective date of this section unless the bonded indebtedness complies with the restrictions of this section. The commission shall not approve any amendment to an urban renewal plan after the effective date of this section unless the plan requires that bonded indebtedness issued to carry out the plan be issued in compliance with the restrictions of this section. A bonded indebtedness issued by the agency after the effective date of this section shall either be approved by the voters of the city, be issued to refund lines of credit, bonds, or other borrowing that were executed before the effective date of this section, or be issued to finance written commitments of the agency that were entered into before the effective date of this section. B, each urban renewal plan of the agency that exists on the effective date of this section is hereby amended to add the following provision. No bonded indebtedness shall be issued under this plan except in compliance with the requirements of the Charter of the City of Oregon City. Any amendment of the preceding sentence must be approved by a non-emergency ordinance of the city. C, the purpose of this section, quote, bonded indebtedness, unquote, has the meaning defined for that term in ORS 310-140 sub 3, as that section of the statute exists on the date this section of the charter is approved by the voters of the city. The statute defines bonded indebtedness to mean any formally executed written agreement representing a promise by a unit of government to pay another a specified sum of money at a specified date or dates at least 1 year in the future. D, this section shall not limit the agency's rights or obligations under any lines of credit, bonds, or other borrowing that were executed prior to the effective date of this section. And then I won't read E, because E was found to be unenforceable by a Clackamas County court decision. So really, it's that definition of bonded indebtedness, with the meaning of any formally executed written agreement representing a promise by a unit of government to pay to another a specified sum of money at a specified date or dates at least 1 year in the future. So essentially what that's saying is we can't enter into an agreement that's more than 1 year long to spend money without going to a vote, right? And so, you know, when we've kind of talked about this over the years, right, I mean, we've had litigation going on, right? You know, I'm wondering, you know, is this something where we bring back and the Urban Renewal Commission has a discussion? Because we can talk about programs and grant programs and fixing the, you know, investing in the courthouse. We don't have a way to use the money, right? No project is going to get done in less than 1 year. It's just not, you know. So that's the struggle, I think, you know, in my opinion, that the Urban Renewal Commission really needs to kind of decide what are we going to do. You know, just Bill and I kind of did a little back and forth when we think about, you know, close the district, right? Close the district and reform a new district through a public process. You know, what that downside there is, all the increment that's been created all the years is lost because you reset the base and refreeze it at the new value. Neither of those address the charter requirement that exists. You know, some other ideas were, you know, go back out to a vote for either the same amount of money as we did last time or a lesser amount of money. Ask the voters to remove 59 from the charter through a vote as well. And then, you know, we talked a little bit about, like, we do have cash on hand, right? But even if we did an overnight lend, let's say we lended with the city for $9 million, paid it back the next day, you know, essentially we've used the debt, we've paid for it, it's less than less than a year, but you still have the limitation on entering into any agreement to spend that money based on what the definition of bonded indebtedness is. And then, do you want to talk a little bit about the
Sure.
way about the suit option?
There are two lawsuit options, and I want to add one more piece of background that we really didn't get into. 59E was invalidated, and the reason why it was invalidated, if you go back and look, was that the court decided that a city charter can't control an urban renewal agency, that they're two separate entities. And so that's why we look at the rest of 59 and say, that's really kind of the same thing. But that's why we feel relatively confident the court would end up there. The question is, how do we get a court to say that? There are two real ways. One option would be for the urban renewal agency to sue the city, saying, you know, asking for a declaratory judgment that 59 doesn't affect the city. There may well be other people who are involved who would intervene, who actually has more of an interest. But that feels odd. Urban renewal agency suing a city is not a great look. The other option, a great look, you know, it's
Suing yourself? Yeah. It's not really.
I mean, they are
Different hats?
They are different hats. You know, half the commission could be in with one hat, half with, anyway, that's an option that, you know, for a variety of perception reasons may not be great. The other option is what's known as a validation suit. And there's a specific provision of ORS Chapter 33 that allows a public entity to take some action, go to the court and say, court, please tell us that this action is valid, that there's no problems with it. And that would require the urban renewal agency to take some action, maybe enter into an agreement with the city to, you know, pay some money a year down the road, or, you know, one of these programs, whatever it may be, and we take it into the court and say, you know, Clackamas County Circuit Court, please bless this. different jurisdictions use this, some more than others. I provided to Tony, and I can get to you. Metro did this a few years ago when they were building the Convention Center Hotel. You know, they wanted to make sure that their bonding was all appropriate, so they did it. So they created an ordinance that did these various things, and then took it to the circuit court and said, please bless this. And the people who were, some people who were opposed to the hotel intervened in that lawsuit and eventually made its way up to the Court of Appeals. But that is another option, and doesn't have the look of the city, you know, the urban renewal suing the city. It's more just, we think this is right, we're gonna do it, and court, please tell us that what we're doing is okay. You know, there is the downside risk, which I think is minimal in this case, given the reason why 59E was struck. The downside risk is the court saying, no, that's not okay, and we disagree, you know. Like I said, I think that's minimal, knowing what we know about 59E, but that's it.
I mean, however it would turn out, it is better than not knowing.
Yes, we would get a definitive
You know,
answer.
we'll live and deal with whichever way it was.
Right.
Let me get comments from any of the commissioners on what Mr. Kvaisman had to say. I don't know that I don't know they're ready to determine a direction tonight, but I'd just like to hear what everybody has to say, and maybe this is a topic for another night. We can get a little more background information for Mr. Kvaisman and lay out the pros and cons of these options. So what are people thinking? Anybody? Okay. Commissioner Merle.
Thank you. I would like to explore this on another night and hear some more background with the pros and cons. I think that regardless of where one stands on this issue, we deserve to know what we can and cannot do. And so, I mean, and if we find out that we can't, then fine, we can shut it down. So, I mean, that's what I would like us to do, is to find a way to get this resolved.
I agree. Yeah, I think we need to know, one way or another.
Okay, so do we have a consensus then that we want to come back? Talk about a work session format with probably more than an hour?
We also have a third option, which is maybe the people that are suing us would withdraw and let sleeping dogs lie.
I think
There are no more lawsuits out there.
I thought you said there was the one that was still pending.
It's tangentially involved in urban renewal. It's more an election law issue.
Election law, okay.
It's not gonna affect the urban renewal agency's authority.
And there's no case law in the state that we can rely on? This hasn't?
Not on this issue. You know, the only case law that we have is on 59E.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm supportive of exploring both options. I have no problem suing the city.
Oh, my God. What a great quote from the mayor tonight.
30 seconds being cut right out of
That's right. They didn't say that she's acting in capacity as a renewal commissioner.
So,
Okay, so-
I think, like I said, there may be, I don't know, I think we've kind of exhausted the options available.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if we come up with another one, we'll be happy to add it, or if someone has questions while we're going through this process, we can look at that. But we're going to kind of focus on kind of providing some information about the options we've provided. But, you know, I mean, I'm not sure how much detail is needed about closing the district, right? I mean, it's an option, it's there.
I don't like that option.
But I think going into a little bit more detail about invalidation suit, what that might look like, what the risk is, you know, if we could put something like that together, that would give the commission an opportunity to read it, think about it, and then discuss it and go from there. But if that seems reasonable.
Yep, and I personally, I'd like to move this ahead as soon as we can. It's been, we've let it go too long already,
Yeah.
without any legal clarity.
Chairman Schweitzer.
Would the Urban Renewal Commission be willing, I mean, so a couple of questions. One, you know, we have, our commission meetings are usually, city commission work sessions are on Tuesday nights. We could, use some of that time for an Urban Renewal Commission work session, if that's what we'd like to do. The other option would be, you know, would we ever consider like starting at, let's say, 5:30 and give ourselves an hour and a half?
Sure.
On a night like tonight when we have city commission afterwards, like, because, or we're finding an open date that doesn't have a meeting usually behind it. So we, you know, typically we only have an hour here from 6 to 7 for urban renewal historically. Is there a strong opinion one way or the other?
I don't have a problem with either one, so.
I would just prefer to do it on a work session night, simply because doing it earlier will be difficult for me to get here.
Okay, so maybe focus on the February City Commission work session, that second Tuesday. And then put this on there as some time that could be available. I know there were a couple things on there, but we'll try and work with the schedule a little bit.
Okay,
To make that fit, if expediency is what we're trying to push here a little bit.
good. That sounds good. Thank you. So, yes,
Well, we still didn't get back to the issue. I would like to see us put this program in place for urban renewal. And because if there is a way that Mr. Graham can figure out how to work with someone and they could repay it back within the year, I don't want to preclude that. If we have something in place, we have an option for somebody to look into this. There's all different ways to finance things. There's all different ways to look at that. But to say absolutely no, we're not even going to consider if somebody has an option.
just for an example, could we, prior to a year, put that money in escrow? And then pay it out of?
Yeah, I think putting it in escrow, you're still, you know, when it closes is when the payment typically transfers.
Oh, okay.
So but if it's a grant and we give it to them,
If it's a grant, we give it to them and, you know, we have ability to claw back in some way, possibly, but you run into.
but see, if we give it to them as a grant and they've met all the requirements and they're not paying it back and it's not debt.
But then we wouldn't have an enforcement mechanism.
Well, it would become a loan.
Well, that's if they don't meet.
Right. But we don't need to get it back if they do meet.
Right. And then, so how is that how does that indebted us?
So I guess the question is, what's the risk of us paying the grant money out prior to the project being completed? Is that
We wouldn't have an enforcement mechanism to get it back if they don't perform to what we wanted them to do.
it would become a loan.
Right.
Mr.
He's
Graham
saying
or
that that's
Mr. Kunkel,
debt.
I mean, the obvious issue is we pay the money out in advance of the project, and the person we pay to absconds some way with it, and.
That becomes debt then.
Well, that's not a debt issue.
No.
It just means that we don't get any benefit out of it. The money is misappropriated.
Okay, so I don't see how this program is affected by the bonded indebtedness.
Because once we enter into an agreement, the way the program is set up, we give them
Right, we enter into an agreement with someone.
We enter into an agreement for them to do work. We give them 50% of the money about halfway after certain thresholds are met. Then we don't give them the rest of the money till it's over.
Right.
I don't see projects getting done in 1 year. And you're going to run into an issue of where you're into an agreement with someone and they're depending on this money and it's not going to be done within a year. So either then you're pulling the money back and breaking the deal, because we'd have to write the deal that it has to be done within 1 year, right? Can't enter into an agreement that exceeds 1 year.
There could be a portion of the project that could be done within a year, is what I'm saying.
It's your risk. I think after all the conversations that we've had about concerns about how urban renewal money is spent and accounted for, and the numerous ways that we've put in for making sure projects comply with what's been presented to the commission. I mean, once again, it's the program that the commission's comfortable with. I'm hesitant because I think it's going to be a stretch.
I get it. I only recommended that we have the Urban Renewal Commission talk about it because I think the better way to go is with non-urban renewal funds, and we can budget for that.
Certainly.
So that's something that has to go back to the commission.
Right.
The other commission.
I think the way to get to this is answer this question about what we can do
Well, that's part
with
of the question.
59.
It's not the entire question.
And keep in mind, the whole point of this program was to heal past ills, in the sense that sometimes projects don't come to fruition. You've already provided the money, and you'll never get it back. And this program is designed with a fail-safe in it, where it becomes a forgivable loan, and if they don't do what they said they would do, it becomes it remains a loan. It starts off as a loan. And then if they don't do what they do, it remains as a loan, and the interest rates and all that are pretty high, and that all kicks in. It gets a little messy if you try to sort of split the baby and do a grant and blend the loan in later, or just do a whole grant. You never get the money back if something happens, and then you have another issue on your hands.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and I have been one of the people in the public realm that had a concern about this, but my suggestion to our staff when we started looking at this was to try to figure out a way we can help people who have systemic problems with their properties that they don't have all of the money to try to take care of it. I think that the city is trying to look at ways that we can assist businesses in many different aspects. So that was the goal. And the reason it got pushed back to urban renewal is because we had some concerns about, well, it should be urban renewal. Well, which is why I said we should try to see about whether we can get funding from both sides of the coin, which is we've got city and we've got urban renewal. And it seems to me now we have to push it back to the city again, because that's the only way it's going to be able to get done. So that is my goal, is to try to get something in place so that we can help businesses and build people with buildings.
Another topic that you need to bring back when we have this work session is the implications of all of this, the properties we own, the urban renewal district owns, what happens in terms of their sales and so forth, depending what direction we want to go. I think there's a lot of things we need information on.
I think liquidating properties isn't a concern.
You're asking about what would happen with the money we get from a sale of a property?
Yes, and that's what,
Well, it goes back to the Urban Renewal Agency, because the Urban Renewal Agency purchased it, and so that money comes back, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, given the uncertainty about the 1 year, and I think I sense from everyone an urgency to get this program in place, the better way to do it would be for the city commission to do it and do it from general funds. To get something, to be more sure that we can get a program in place quickly. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you know, if we wanted to look at, right, you could under-collect the district again and use those funds that are saved for an economic development program, right? So for example, and Matt can correct me, by collecting zero in the district, it was around 900,000 to the general fund. Collecting 25% would be around 7-ish, 100,000, right? So, do you under collect? Use the money to do your program? I mean, that's just, when you think about it, just, I guess I'm taking off my executive director of the Urban Renewal District when I talk about the city's general fund budget is the one that gets the most pressure from an expenditure standpoint, right? And so, just it's something to think about, but it is something that the commission did talk about, that, that was a priority. And so through that budgeting process, that's the priority that the budget committee can identify and invest in. Absolutely.
Mr. Moore.
So the reason why I had requested that we bring this to urban renewal is because this is a project and a program that fits perfectly within the goals of what the Urban Renewal Commission is seeking to do. I have a hard time, as you guys all know, going into the general fund. But with that being said, I recognize that there's also an urgency to get a project up and running. And so I would be open to, since we're heading to the end of the end of the biennium, if there is an ability to take out of the general fund, I would be willing to look at that while we are waiting for things in urban renewal to get sorted out. But I would not want it to become a permanent general fund thing in the future with the hopes that urban renewal can pay for it from then on. Again, I just have a hard time going into the general fund with these great and worthy programs because we aren't even in the budget season yet. So that's where I'm coming from.
It's okay. That was my intent all along, that we temporarily do this and get these other issues resolved, because, you know, I am tired of waiting on this, as you all are.
So do we have consensus to refer this back to the city commission?
Yes.
And at the same time, try to figure out the one-year thing or figure out the future of urban renewal, so we could also do this through urban renewal?
Yes.
Long-term?
Yes.
Yeah. Consensus on that? Do you need any kind of motion to that effect, Mr. Conkle?
No, I don't believe so. So so we're going to shoot for the February work session to bring back a discussion about the options, but then to bring this back to City Commission for a discussion. I'm sorry, was that correct? Bring back the program now back to City Commission to talk about if we'd like to fund a portion of that with general fund.
Right.
Is that correct?
On an interim basis.
Yep.
Very interim, very specifically interim.
Yes. Anything else from commissioners? Communications?
I don't. I'll provide them at our next meeting at this point.
Okay. Seeing nothing else, we're adjourned. Thank you.